People have always judged each other based on clothing, but did you know meals could do the same? Believe it or not, what you ate in the 1970s said a lot about you. If you're curious about the dishes that made the biggest statements, I've got the top 25 right here. Country Captain. Country Captain was a dish that emerged straight from the American South in the 1970s, specifically from Savannah and Charleston. It didn't remain confined to its hometowns, as this curry was destined to sweep the entire South and the nation by storm. In an era when subcontinental food concepts were not yet an everyday fact of life, although we did have shawarmas, delis, and the occasional experimental dish, it marked a turning point. This tomato-based curry sauce proved that making a curry need not be an arduous endeavor, but could instead be an incredibly tasty dinner. The advent of canned tomatoes, a forgotten food from yesteryear, really helped here. All one needed were warm spices, onions, bell peppers, and a dash of curry powder, with the canned tomatoes stealing the show. Country Captain isn't just a meal remembered by families facing hard times, it was also a staple in military mess halls. Though now overtaken by countless modern curries, no one can forget the days when Country Captain was a name that brought joy in the good old days. Rice with soy sauce. Rice with soy sauce is another dish that carries a legacy of change. Today, soy sauce is a pantry staple, but its pairing with rice has a history that runs deep. Looking back into the 1970s, you might be surprised to learn there are several origins to this trend. One story credits the rising influence of Asian culture, while another points to the surge in Asian immigration following the Nationality Act of '65. The result was a wildfire of convenience foods and budget-friendly alternatives at a time when the nation was teetering on the brink of a fast food-induced health crisis. Rice wasn't merely sustenance, it became a trusty companion in tough times. And when Asian immigrants brought not only their sauces but also their culinary skills, they unlocked up to 10 different ways to enjoy soy sauce with rice. Macaroni with butter and salt. One of the simplest comforts was a piping hot plate of macaroni with butter and salt. For many working-class and middle-class homes, every dollar saved was earmarked for essentials like property. With both parents working and barely enough to cover everyday costs, splurging on elaborate meals was unthinkable. While many would settle for beans on toast, macaroni stood out as the perfect comfort food. Chewy, munchable, and incredibly easy to prepare with virtually no prep work. Even a child could spread butter and salt on a plate of macaroni, a small luxury to unwind with while watching TV and preparing for the next shift. Beans on toast. I'm sure you're all familiar with the classic beans on toast, a dish that stretches back to the deeply ingrained culinary roots of any nation. This was especially true in the United States, particularly in the South during the 1970s. Serving beans on toast instead of, say, hash browns and eggs or pancakes with maple syrup conveyed subtle messages. That flour was scarce, sugar was a luxury not to waste, dairy was in short supply, and that one probably earned only an honest day's pay. Though modern society may have outgrown it, in those nostalgic times, beans on toast was not just a dead giveaway of someone's economic status. It was a proud emblem of working-class resilience that many Gen X laborers and field workers fondly recall. Hamburger gravy. On bread. Hamburger gravy on bread provided another inventive solution for an affordable meal. It all began by browning beef in a skillet, then tossing in any available vegetables to boost the flavor. A simple roux, flour mixed with beef drippings, brought everything together into a comforting sauce. Whether for school lunches or for bulk meals that saved extra expenses, this method proved to be a massive godsend for many during those challenging times. Pork neck bones with rice. Have you ever tried pork neck bones? These cuts, unlike the prime selections typically seen in steakhouses or butcher shops, were once the dependable choice for the working class in America during the 1970s. The trend of consuming the less desirable, tougher parts of the animal stemmed from financial hardship and a waste-not mentality. Pork neck bones were cheap, easily available, and never in short supply, familiar to cattle-raising families long before the rest of the nation caught on to their hearty broths. This dish became a retro recipe that epitomized the resilience of the golden age of forgotten foods. Potted meat sandwiches. Potted meat sandwiches were another staple that even a kid could assemble, almost as straightforward as a peanut butter sandwich. Canned foods were a marvel in the 1970s, delivering massive quantities of sustenance that were easy to carry and long-lasting. Potted meat, brands like Libby's or Underwood, was a heavily processed, budget-friendly option that, once paired with your favorite sauce and 2 slices of bread, made a hearty meal. In the South, this dish wasn't just perfect for school lunches, it was a daily relief for factory and construction workers, embodying the spirit of practical, no-frills cooking. Tripe. Tripe is the edible stomach lining of cows, and is one of those ingredients that makes you go, really? In many cultures, tripe was a beloved dish, often cooked in soups and stews. These poverty foods weren't just about using the cheapest ingredients available, they were about resourcefulness and respecting the entire animal. People found ways to use every part, from the meat to the organs and even the stomach lining, turning what others might discard into nourishing meals. Tripe has a unique texture that is both chewy and tender, and soaks up flavors beautifully. Back in the day, it was a cheap way to add protein to a meal, especially when times were tough. It's the kind of dish that takes some getting used to both in terms of taste and texture, and though it's now more likely found in ethnic cuisine than on the average American dinner table, it still maintains a loyal following among aficionados of retro recipes. Potato pancakes. Then there are potato pancakes, a true godsend reminiscent of the resourcefulness seen in retro recipes. Potatoes, once seen only as a starchy side for curly fries and vanilla milkshakes, revealed their hidden versatility when you found that they were your only weapon during tough times. Community cookbooks and magazines from the era abound with creative ideas, but nothing showcases the humble potato quite like the potato pancake. Not only were they a delicious alternative, but they also offered a smart response to the rising difficulties of the 20th century, a time marked by financial instability, shorter paychecks, and escalating costs. In the 1970s, potatoes weren't just bought cheaply, they were often grown for free, providing a practical solution when every cent counted. Egg drop soup. Egg drop soup is a dish we're so accustomed to today that it seems impossible to escape its presence, especially in any bustling Chinatown. This simple yet incredibly satisfying soup found its footing in the heart of 1970s America, at a time when our curiosity for international flavors, from Scandinavian and Swedish to European, Japanese, Chinese, and Taiwanese, was just beginning to blossom. Back then, one of the first culinary adventures was exploring Chinese cuisine. With a broth subtly seasoned with soy sauce, white pepper, and sesame oil, and delicate strands of beaten eggs added for artistry, it was thickened to create the perfect winter warmer, a dish that could revive your spirit in just 5 minutes and $1. Recognized as a standout of Chinese-American culture, it paved the way for a mainstream appreciation that would continue into the 1980s and beyond. Hog maw. Hog maw. Now this is a dish that's sure to impress your dinner guests. It's basically a pig's stomach stuffed with, well, who knows, probably whatever was lying around. When you think of luxurious foods, a pig's stomach is the last thing that comes to mind. But back in the 1960s and 70s, when wallets were tight, people had to make do with whatever they could find. It appeared in American soul food as well as in Chinese, Mexican, Portuguese, Italian, and Vietnamese dishes. Hog maw was especially popular in Pennsylvania Dutch country, where nothing went to waste. It might sound a little like something from Fear Factor, but it was actually a way to stretch ingredients and make a filling meal for the whole family. It was like the ultimate meatloaf if meatloaf came with an organ-based casing, a forgotten food that still carries that nostalgic charm. Fish head soup. Good reason indeed. This dish actually includes real fish heads. This traditional recipe is both budget-friendly and rich with flavor. The idea to use heads of fish like cod or salmon arose because these were the typical catches of the day. You also had catfish and snappers, but you had an infinitely better chance of catching cod than anything else. The logic is much like using animal fat for flavor. Think bacon grease or lard. Fish heads significantly improve the flavor of the soup because they contain a dense concentration of fat, oils in the cheeks and eyes, and collagen that lends a nice umami taste. It works exceptionally well in broths and stews, keeping the meat tender while making sure every spoonful is twice as flavorful as it would be otherwise. Hey, it's icky, but it was one of those retro recipes from yesteryear that became a forgotten dinner staple, evoking the nostalgia of the good old days for many Gen Xers. Oysters Rockefeller. Oysters Rockefeller graced many a gathering, consisting of succulent oysters on the half shell topped with a rich, buttery mixture of finely chopped herbs and breadcrumbs, then baked or broiled until golden. Originating in 1899 at Antoine's in New Orleans, one of America's historic restaurants, the dish's exact recipe remains a secret. Typically, it includes spinach, celery, and sometimes an anise-flavored lure, creating a luxurious topping. The oysters are gently poached in their shells to retain moisture, then crowned with this seasoned blend. After assembling, they are broiled until the topping bubbles and browns slightly, offering a delightful contrast in textures between the creamy, tender oyster and the crisp, flavorful topping, a dish that continues to evoke the elegance of yesteryear. Creamed spinach. Creamed spinach combines nutritional value with a palatable presentation, making it a favored vegetable dish among students. The preparation starts with fresh or frozen spinach, thoroughly washed and then cooked down until it wilts. A creamy sauce made from a blend of milk, flour, and butter is prepared separately, seasoned with a hint of nutmeg or garlic to enrich the flavor profile. The spinach is then incorporated into the sauce, which gently coats the leaves to create a smooth and appealing texture. This dish not only adds a vibrant color to the plate, but also increases the intake of greens in students' diets, providing essential nutrients like iron, vitamin A, and calcium. Its mild flavors and creamy texture helped introduce and encourage a preference for vegetables among younger children, a true classic introduced during the retro days of the 1970s. Fried chicken livers. Not quite on the same level as pork neck bones, fried chicken livers offered an inexpensive way to get protein in the 1970s. Particularly popular in rural America, where organ meats had once been everyday fare before falling out of style, in the mid-20th century, these livers stood the test of time. Their versatility was key. Whether seasoned with basic spices or an elaborate blend of rubs, marinated, breaded, and deep-fried, boiled, roasted, or grilled, the methods were endless. Many home cooks even had regional tricks, such as soaking the livers in milk or salt water to mellow their iron-rich flavor. Ultimately, the appeal was simple: a cheap, easy-to-make dish that was as good to eat as it was memorable from the days of retro recipes. Shepherd's pie. Shepherd's pie, often made with beef, was a clever strategy in working-class homes determined not to waste a single bite. In an era when even pork neck bones were consumed to cut down on waste, many households relied on one-pot meals, large stews, casseroles, and meatloaf, crafted to feed 4 or 5 people, including several children. Leftovers were inevitable, and repurposing them into a hearty shepherd's pie became a common practice. Using leftover meat, whether roast beef, meatloaf, or ground beef, as the base, families would add vegetables and gravy, top it with mashed potatoes, and bake it until it reached the perfect hue. Often enjoyed straight from the pan, this dish epitomized the spirit of retro recipes, ensuring that nothing went to waste and every penny was well spent. Crown roast of lamb. Crown roast of lamb is an exquisite dish often reserved for special occasions and holiday feasts. This majestic preparation involves arranging racks of lamb into a circular shape resembling a crown, with ribs pointing skyward. It is seasoned with a mix of rosemary, garlic, and thyme, both in the marinade and as a rub applied before roasting, to enhance its flavor and retain moisture. The crown center is typically filled with stuffing composed of breadcrumbs, minced garlic, herbs, and occasionally dried fruits like apricots or cranberries. The lamb is roasted until it achieves a tender texture and a beautifully browned exterior. Precision in tying the racks together ensures even cooking, and chefs often cover the rib tips with foil during roasting to prevent charring. This dish not only dazzles as a culinary delight, but also stands as a festive centerpiece, evoking the nostalgic elegance of a forgotten dinner from yesteryear. American cornmeal porridge. Before oatmeal became a nationwide phenomenon, many families had to rely on cornmeal porridge, a dish that, despite its humble origins, developed a cult following. While some die-hard fans still swear by it, others find it less appealing. Either way, corn has long been a staple in working-class cuisine. Since the times of the first colonial settlers, corn has been an abundant crop, cherished for its ease of growth and practicality. In African-American neighborhoods, Caribbean families, and Southern homes alike, simmering cornmeal with water and milk to create a thick, satisfying porridge was the epitome of a forgotten dinner that sustained both body and spirit. For many, cornmeal porridge was not only a meal, but also a sign of financial hardship, yet it remains a nostalgic reminder of the simple yet resilient culinary traditions of yesteryear. Sloppy Joes. Sloppy Joes have been a staple in American school cafeterias since their introduction in the mid-20th century, a tasty way to start the new year. This dish features ground beef or pork sautéed with onions and garlic until browned, then simmered in a savory tomato-based sauce seasoned with Worcestershire sauce and other spices. The thick, hearty mixture is spooned onto soft hamburger buns, creating a filling and flavorful sandwich that is both messy and delightful to eat. The preparation requires minimal kitchen equipment and uses ingredients that were staples in most school pantries, making it a cost-effective choice for feeding a large number of students. Moreover, the ability to prepare the meat mixture ahead of time and quickly assemble the sandwiches during busy lunch periods enhanced its practicality. The familiarity of the flavors combined with its satisfying nature ensures that sloppy joes remain a cherished option from the good old days. Hoppin' John. Hoppin' John is a southern classic made with black-eyed peas, rice, and pork, often flavored with onions, garlic, and spices. Traditionally eaten on New Year's Day for good luck and prosperity, the peas represented coins while the greens served alongside represented dollars. Some recipes use ham, fatback, country sausage, or smoked turkey parts instead of bacon. A few even add green peppers or vinegar and spices. Hoppin' John was a hearty, comforting dish perfect for feeding a crowd on a budget. It was a one-pot wonder that brought together simple ingredients in a delicious way. Despite its tasty credentials, it never quite made it to the top of the culinary charts, but it remains steeped in tradition, a reminder of the retro recipes and forgotten foods cherished in the 1970s and 1980s. Pickle sandwiches. Pickle sandwiches. They're just something we're all too used to, and that wasn't truer than in the 70s. Nowadays, pickle sandwiches have definitely fallen out of style. We have so many more options, and people are more interested in making flashy dishes for social media than keeping it minimal and simple. The difference is in the meanings attached to them. Today, people might think a pickle sandwich is healthy or diet food, but back then, it was simply a giveaway that you were working for bad pay at a bad job, or maybe even a good job where the pay just wasn't enough. Meals like these were seen as ration food, and those eating them were immediately pegged as strugglers from lower-class communities. Pickle jars were just a few cents and would last an incredible amount of time, which makes sense why it became such a common lunch for people who were struggling. It might be a stretch to say it was a sign of poverty, but in the retro recipes of the good old days, it was simply a practical choice. Hot water cornbread. Hot water cornbread was essentially just this southern classic that became really popular among communities in the 1970s. All you had to do was mix cornmeal dough, made by combining the cornmeal with a lot of hot water, and then boil it with some salt to create a really thick, firm batter. If you could spare some brown sugar or white sugar, that would be even better. After that was done, all you had to do was mix the dough and shape it into patties and cakes often just the size of a pancake. They were fried in hot oil or lard, usually for additional flavor, and then served as a snack. Hot water cornbread was something people would typically either eat with vegetables like collard greens or with fried chicken. Whatever they had it with, it was delicious. While corn-based dishes and breads were always seen as a sign of a low-income home, they also bring back memories of a time when simple, forgotten dinners held a special place in our hearts. Cheesy ham and broccoli casserole. The American broccoli casserole, known as cheesy ham and broccoli casserole, became a beloved dish that cleverly combined the need for convenience with the desire for flavorful meals. This casserole mixes chopped, cooked ham and broccoli with a rich cheese sauce, often made creamier with the addition of a condensed soup, and then topped with breadcrumbs or crushed crackers for texture before being baked until golden. It exemplifies the era's ingenuity in using readily available, often pre-processed ingredients to create a one-pot meal that reduced both preparation time and cleanup. This dish was particularly favored because of its versatility, allowing variations such as substituting chicken for ham or adding different vegetables. And it remains a cherished memory from the golden age of retro recipes. Fried chicken patties. Fried chicken patties were introduced to American schools in the 1980s and quickly became a favorite due to their similarity to popular fast food. These patties are made from ground chicken mixed with spices, then breaded with flour and breadcrumbs to create a crispy outer layer. The frying process transforms these prepared patties into golden, crunchy delights with a juicy interior, typically served as sandwiches or with sides like fries. The method of preparing these patties is well suited to the high-volume requirements of school cafeterias, involving simple steps that can be executed quickly: mixing, forming, breading, and frying. This efficiency ensured that delicious hot meals could be served promptly, reducing wait times and maximizing student satisfaction during lunch, a true hallmark of the retro convenience foods remembered fondly by Gen Xers. Taco salad. Taco salad, which emerged as a popular dish in American cuisine in the 1960s, is a notable example of Tex-Mex culinary fusion. The typical taco salad starts with a crunchy tortilla bowl filled with lettuce, seasoned ground beef, shredded cheese, diced tomatoes, and black olives, finished with dollops of sour cream and salsa. This dish illustrates the adaptability of Mexican cuisine to American tastes, often incorporating more cheese and sour cream than traditional Mexican salads. Taco salads became particularly popular in the 1980s, often served at gatherings and potlucks due to their customizable nature, which allowed guests to tailor the toppings to their preferences. It's a dish that encapsulates the spirit of innovation and simplicity of the good old days. Vienna sausages and crackers. Vienna sausages were small canned delights composed almost entirely of finely ground meat, a pantry staple as common as salt in the 1970s. In an era marked by the rise of convenience food, these sausages were indispensable. Whether it was a kid off to school, a husband heading to work, or a tired wife crafting a quick sandwich, there was scarcely a situation where Vienna sausages weren't the perfect fix. Their ready-made nature allowed them to be eaten cold straight from the can, though many chose to fry or heat them or serve them with bread and crackers, sometimes even nestled in a hot dog bun to create a quick piece of street food. Their universal appeal was a jack-of-all-trades solution for every food-related need. Powdered mashed potatoes. Powdered mashed potatoes were the star of the entire convenience food revolution, a true testament to practicality in the golden age of the 1970s. As grocery stores and pantries nationwide began to rely on processed foods, these instant mashed potatoes rose to prominence. Originally developed for military rations and food aid programs, they later became a household staple when companies like Idahoan, Betty Crocker, and Hungry Jack refined the formula. While fresh potatoes are wonderful, no one relishes the labor of peeling, boiling, and mashing them. In contrast, these instant potatoes only required rehydration with water and milk, a quick seasoning, and optional add-ons such as cheese, sour cream, or canned vegetables, making them the quickest way to enjoy potatoes during those nostalgic, resourceful days. Ritz Cracker Mock Apple Pie. Now, think about the ingenious Ritz Cracker Mock Apple Pie, a dish emblematic of the creativity born out of necessity in the 1970s. In times when supplies were low, people devised a method to mimic apple pie using what they had. Ritz crackers were crumbled and layered to simulate the texture of apple slices. A dense blend of cinnamon sugar, water, and cream of tartar was boiled together, then enhanced with a splash of lemon juice and spices to add a fruity vibe. It's remarkable how such a forgotten food came so close to replicating the real thing, a testament to America's culinary inventiveness during a period that many still remember with nostalgic fondness. Canned ravioli. Traditional ravioli was largely off the menu for many, owing to a steep skill barrier and the scarcity of flour during the Depression era. Most of the country was living well below their usual financial capacities, and even among canned foods, ravioli stood apart. Part of its appeal lay in the craftsmanship of Chef Boyard, the company behind it, which produced a version with a kid-friendly charm, an essential factor in 1970s America. In a time celebrated for retro recipes and forgotten dinners, this dish involves simply tossing bits of meat-filled pasta in tomato sauce and heating it up. It could be enjoyed cold or paired with stale bread to ensure nothing went to waste. Removing the complexity made canned ravioli accessible to everyone, turning it into a national staple that resonates with the nostalgia of Gen X households.